Hello, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you being here and watching the show or listening to the show. If you're on the podcast format, if you're on YouTube, thanks for being here. Got a great show planned for you. Kamala Harris, it took her one day, that was it, for her to say that, maybe she'll back down from Medicare for all and explore more moderate options. Also, Wall Street came out with who they are backing and who they will absolutely not support. We want to pay attention to that. Sounds like they're telling us who not to vote for. So yeah, keep it coming, Wall Street. Keep on with that one. Also, Ocasio-Cortez and Pelosi, they are rolling out a bill to protect women. It's, if you're familiar with the Lilly Ledbetter Act, which is to help women, basically it made it to where women could sue for not getting paid the same amount of money. Well, they've rolled out now another kind of to layer onto that to help close the gender the gender gap in salaries. But I actually have an idea for a more progressive option that's been implemented by some companies now for even decades. So we'll talk about that on the show. But first, I want to talk about Howard Schultz. So Howard Schultz, the CEO that's making waves, CEO of Starbucks, billionaire, people are really, really frightened of him right now. They're thinking, oh my gosh, this guy is going to split the Democratic Party. He is going to be the one who Trump is going to be winning the office again because Howard Schultz is going to split the Democrats. And I gotta say, after watching the guy on MSNBC's Morning Joe, I don't know a single Democrat who would vote for this guy. I don't think he's going to be splitting the Democratic vote at all because I don't know what kind of a Democrat votes for him. And actually, I think that Howard Schultz might be some kind of a sinister genius. I really think he might be. And let me explain. So when I watched his interview on Morning Joe, I was furious. I just thought, this guy is the embodiment of the establishment. Here he is. He's so clearly anti-progressive. He's calling Elizabeth Warren a socialist. He then says that he's against universal education, the government takeover of healthcare, and he even says at some point free jobs. I don't know what a free job is, but Howard Schultz is apparently against free jobs. I didn't know I had to pay to get a job. So listening to this guy on Morning Joe, I just think, this guy is anti-progressive and he is the establishment through and through. They even ask him at one point, why run as an independent? Why not run as a Democrat? You've been a lifelong Democrat. We know you're a Democrat. You supported Hillary Clinton. Listen to them, grill him on this.
Why not just run as a Democrat? We know you are a Democrat. You've given to Hillary Clinton. You've supported her candidacy.
I have been a Democrat, but I am.
So are you no longer a Democrat?
No, I'm not a Democrat. I don't affiliate myself with the Democratic Party, who's so far left, who basically wants the government to take over health care, which we cannot afford, the government to give free college to everybody, and the government to give everyone a job, which basically is $40 trillion on the balance sheet of $21.5 trillion. We can't afford it.
So the guy admits that he's been a lifelong Democrat. He gave to Hillary Clinton, but he's no longer Democrat because he doesn't like what the Democrats stand for, which is, in his mind, education, free education, and government takeover of healthcare and jobs. Since when has the Democratic Party been for that? That is a progressive movement. That is not what the Democratic Party is for. So watching this, I think, gosh, this guy is just the embodiment of the establishment. This guy is everything that is wrong with the Democratic Party. And thank God they're starting to abandon ship and become independents. That's what we'd rather have them do. Just leave. Just go. Let the progressives take over. Perfect. So he goes on to say what he thinks the country needs. And he's not totally wrong on this.
The American people want a change. The American people realize the government is not working.
Right.
It's not a statistic that 40% of American people don't have $400 in a bank, or 5 million kids in America are not in school and not work. Those are not statistics. Those are people.
But not all Democrats want Medicare.
I want to help
You're
them.
citing Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren. Not all Democrats want Medicare for all. Why couldn't you get in the Democratic race and make the case you're making right now as a centrist Democrat?
Because I think the country needs transformation.
He's right on that. The country needs transformation. The country is wanting transformation. That's exactly why Trump was elected, because people are fed up with the status quo. They're fed up with what's going on in Washington. They know, deep down, people know, even if they can't quite articulate it or put their finger on it, because, you know, what Congress has been really crafty at is making everything very, very complicated so that the average person just has no idea what's going on up there. I mean, it just seems like the single most complicated job in the world to figure out the system. So Americans have figured out that fundamentally we feel like something is absolutely wrong in Washington. And he's right. The country feels like we need transformation. So he goes on to talk about what he thinks about people, feeling disenfranchised.
There's nothing working in the government. So why should we vote in a Democrat and or a Republican to just continue the broken system and embrace the status quo?
You don't think you could disrupt it the way Donald Trump disrupted the Republican Party? He's not really a Republican, but he found that as his vessel to get into the White House.
No, but I'm not
saying you want to behave like he does as president, but it was his way into the White House.
No, I think this is a time in America for complete reimagination, and what I'm going to try and do is go out to the American people and ignite a powerful movement. And I believe not people in New York, not people in D.C. I'm hearing from thousands of American people, thousands saying, finally, someone's voice that I can relate to that represents the fact that I no longer feel as if I'm a Republican or a Democrat.
That's what they said about Trump.
Okay, a couple of things there. He's talking about a powerful movement that needs to happen, and he's also talking about people feeling disenfranchised by the political parties, which I think is very accurate. I don't feel like a Democrat or a Republican. I don't feel like either party represents me at all. And I think a lot of people feel that way. Now, we might not agree on politics, but we definitely all agree that we just feel like, wow, this really polarized governmental system that's going on, this hyper-partisan the hyper-partisan politics is just toxic and it's not working. I do agree with him on that. He's talking about, though, a movement. Like, people want to feel inspired by a movement. And I think we've seen the movements that are working. Trump was a movement that worked for the Republicans, and Bernie Sanders was a movement that worked for Democrats. And so I agree with him in that people are looking for an inspiring movement, but I'm not sure that this all of a sudden independent centrist is the movement. I don't think people are all of a sudden going to say, you know what, I just want more of the same. I want an independent centrist who's going to make absolutely no headway with either of these groups whatsoever. That's what I want. I want somebody to just kind of keep me. I mean, what is an independent centrist thinking that they're going to even do? What are you going to do as an independent centrist? What kind of change are you even going to make? The only change he's basically proposing is, I'm just going to force the two sides to get along. Okay, but... Okay, so he talks about the 5 things he doesn't like about Democrats. This was, to me, very infuriating.
Give me 5 issues that the Democratic Party stands for today that you don't agree with.
I just gave you 3.
What are they?
Government takeover of health care, free college for everyone, a free job for everybody, and the Democrats and the Republicans under the last 20 years on both parties have been complicit in creating a $21.5 trillion debt that is a reckless, immoral abandonment of leadership.
He sounds like a Republican, plain and simple. This guy so far sounds like a Republican, and it gets worse. Listen to what he has to say about unions.
What are you going to do about restoring the role of unions in this country?
Well, the issue of unions, if you look at the history of unions, unions arrived in America because there were a lot of bad actors of companies. Like, my father worked for a company in which he was fired. Unions arrived on the scene because companies were not doing the right thing for their employees. Unions have an obligation and responsibility to protect their employees. But there are also very good companies in America, very good managements in America, who recognize that we have to share success, that not every business decision is an economic one. Unions have a role to play. But unions are not the answer. The answer to inequality is a comprehensive tax reform. Again,
he sounds like a Republican here, right? He's saying, unions aren't the answer. And there are good companies out there who treat their employees well. Okay, but there's a lot of companies out there who don't. So sounding still a lot like a Republican. This is what he has to say about taxes. If this doesn't convince you he's a Republican, I don't know what does.
They kill you.
So Senator Warren, as you know, put out a plan of a 2% tax on people with $50 million or more in assets. You called that plan ridiculous. We showed a poll earlier in the show that says the American public likes that idea a lot. And they hear someone like you with billions of dollars calling it ridiculous and say, of course, he wants to protect his own money. What do you say to that?
Well, if that plan was put in place, it probably could fund the government for a day or two. So that's not the answer.
Do you like how, first of all, that this was a Fox News poll? It was a Fox News poll. And overwhelmingly, people favor taxing incomes over $10 million. But I love his answer, right? His answer is so Republican. He's saying, my taxes aren't going to solve the problem. Why take money from me? My taxes would only fund the government for a day. Well, if we're going to follow that logic, then I don't need to pay taxes at all, and neither do you, because our taxes are only going to fund the government for a minute. So let's just give it up. No more taxes. Forget it. My taxes are useless to you. You just don't need them. Very Republican answers from this guy so far. So when I watch him, I think, what are Democrats worried about? This guy clearly is spewing a GOP policy platform. This guy is not going to take anyone from the Democrats. Right now, what we've got in the Democratic Party are two things. You've got the progressives. We want change, real change. We want the government. We want money out of government so that we can actually have actual policy for the people. That is the progressive movement. Then you've got this other group going on in the Democratic Party. I guess I should say the Democratic Party are three parties. The second group is the one that's more about identity. They're really focused on making change when it comes to the face of America. They would like to see a woman or a person of color win the presidency. That's what they're focused on. So they're not going to be voting for another old white guy. That's just not going to happen. And the progressives certainly aren't going to vote for this guy because he's anti-progressive. A lot of us suspect that the guy's running because he hates progressives. So you've got two groups on the Democratic Party he's not even going to get. The third group maybe he would get, because these are going to be the real establishment Democrats who are the neoliberals, who are not at all Democrats, but they're Republicans who have slowly kind of inched away from the Republican Party and became more Democrat because socially they were more liberal. So social liberals, fiscal Republicans. Maybe he would get that group. But why? Why would he get that group when that group is so happy to vote for someone like Kamala Harris who will serve the same purpose? They're wanting to feel like they're social liberals. That's what this group is. So they don't want to be accused of racism or bigotry. So what do to belay that is that they vote for someone that's not going to give them that rap. So they're not going to vote for Howard Schultz either. I mean, it's going to be so few of them. The people who are going to vote for Howard Schultz are going to be the disenfranchised Republicans who have no other choice except Trump because he's definitely going to get the GOP nomination. We already know this. He's the president right now. He's going to be nominated again as the Republican person. The only chance a Republican contender has is to run as an independent against him. So this brings me to my other thought. So when I saw all of this, my thoughts were, oh my gosh, I hate this guy. I was cussing out the computer screen. People would walk by the studio and they would hear me cussing at the screen. They're like, you cussing at your computer again? And I'd be like, oh, it's just Howard Schultz. This guy is such a schmuck. I mean, he's such a Republican. And then he says he's a lifelong Democrat and he's the establishment. He's everything I hate. And then I thought, maybe I've got this guy all wrong. I mean, it just is not making sense. Let's put the pieces together here. This guy has been the CEO of Starbucks. Starbucks, the most progressive company in the world. Let's just go through what Starbucks has done as a progressive company. First of all, Starbucks gives to their employees free college tuition. That's odd. Didn't Howard Schultz say he was against free college tuition? But his track record shows that he's for free college tuition. He also gives health care to not only his full-time employees, but his part-time employees. That's odd. Don't you think that's a little odd? He also pays above minimum wage. He also has been notorious for causing a lot of controversy by supporting more liberal causes, LGBTQ rights, creating more inclusion in his holiday cups. Remember, every year there's a fiasco about Starbucks holiday cups because he dropped the Christmas kind of icons and tried to make the cups more inclusive of people of all religions. And that causes a controversy every single year. What did Starbucks just recently do? Two big things. One of them was they committed to hiring 10,000 refugees. And this was in response to Trump's anti-refugee rhetoric. Starbucks comes out and says, okay, Trump, he's a big old jerk. You know what we're going to do? We're going to hire refugees. They even set up career fairs for refugees specifically. Also, the second thing they did that made the big news recently, that was a very progressive thing to do. They shut down 8,000 stores in order to do racial bias training after the two men were asked to leave Starbucks for standing there. This is a very progressive company. Howard Schultz is a progressive guy. He's anti-Trump. He's been anti-Trump for a long time, and he gives his employees a lot of perks and a lot of benefits that we only wish other companies in America would do. We wish other companies would follow his lead. So what's all this about? No free education, no health care, jobs. You know, it's funny how he attacks jobs. It's almost a joke, right? When he says free jobs, we're going to give... I mean, what's a free job? I don't even know what a free job is. You mean I have to pay for a job? I just don't understand this. So here's a guy who has been through and through progressive and very, very anti-Trump. And I think he knows, because I think he is actually a smart guy. I think he knows the only way to steal voters from Trump is to run in a lane where they can confidently and safely vote for him. And that would be as an independent, not as a Democrat. He's being grilled by all these Democrats. Why aren't you running as a Democrat? We know you're a Democrat. We know you give to the Democratic Party. And he's like, no, not anymore. Not anymore. I'm not anymore. And it doesn't make any sense. So I'm thinking what this guy's doing is a big old trick. He's pulling the wool over the GOP's eyes, and it's fantastic. I mean, what he's doing is he's just saying, you know what? I'm going to run as an independent. What are the things he says? He says all the things Trump said that got to his base. I'm a self-made man from the Bronx. I came from nothing. I've been there. Here I am now, a billionaire. I'm running a big company. You want to be me. That's what people were saying about Trump. You want to be me, right? He's saying, look, I'm a businessman. I know how to get things done. I'm not a politician. I'm a disruptor. I'm going to make change. And he's saying, and I'm not a Republican and I'm not a Democrat. That's the key. I'm not a Democrat. I no longer support the Democrats. They're socialists. They're for all of these things I'm not, even though you and I both know as progressives that the Democratic Party isn't for those things either. That's what's funny about all of this. What is Howard Schultz talking about? I think the guy is pretty smart. I'm starting to think that this is a game. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's got $1 billion to do it. And he's the guy that's going to take those votes away from Trump and ensure that a Democrat gets into that office. I think the guy might be an American hero. I'm just saying. It's possible. At least I'm hoping that this is true. And if it's not true, then at least I just don't see any Democrats voting for him. So even if this guy believes everything he says, and this isn't an actual ploy to just dethrone Trump, then he's not going to get any Democrats anyway. What Democrat is going to vote for this guy? No one's going to vote for this guy. He's only going to get the never-Trumpers. And he's even hired Steve Schmidt to be the guy to oversee his campaign. And Steve Schmidt was the guy who ran John McCain's campaign and who gave us Sarah Palin, thank you very much, and who recently just came out saying, okay, I give up the Republican Party and I'm no longer a Trump supporter. Well, he never was a Trump supporter. He says, I can't be a Republican because I can't support Trump. So he's got that guy for his messaging. That guy is going to appeal to the other Republicans with the same sentiment. This guy's going after Republicans. He's dethroning Trump. He might be an American hero.